Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. We'd like to adjourn the Board of Education closed session at 6:55 and reconvene the Board of Education open session at 7 o'clock. Before I acknowledge anything moving forward, I just want to say something about a special person. We would like to open up tonight's meeting welcoming the newest addition to the Monrovia Unified School District family. Brooks Landry Miller is the newest son to Santa Fe teacher Chad Miller. Brooke was born September 29th and weighs in at 8 pounds and 8 ounces. Congratulations, that's awesome. Next, I'd like to ask our proud Mariners of Mayflower to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hello, we are junior coaches from Mayflower and we'll be leading you in the pledge. Please stand up.
Put your right hand over your heart.
Ready, begin. As a member of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Board President Williams and members of the board, and good evening, Dr. Trosian. I'm Michelle Costarella, principal at Mayflower, and this year we have implemented a new playground program called Playworks. The program promotes inclusiveness and positivity. Our playground staff was trained, as was a select group of students who are called junior coaches. And tonight, I have invited 3 of my junior coaches here to share with you a little bit more about the program and their role on the playground.
Hello, board. My name is Kyle Sellinger, and I am a Mayflower junior coach. Junior coaches serve as leaders on our playground and are a part of our new program called Playworks. With the help of Playworks, we have brought many new activities to our recess and playtime. The activities are like regular sports, but with a little twist. Junior coaches set up the games and play along with others. We set up the cones and equipment for soccer, basketball, and kickball and help kids properly play the games. Kids have lots of choices now, and the playground aides do cool chants and get us ready to sail on the playground every day.
Hello, my name is Josiah Lee, and I too was chosen to serve as a junior coach at Mayflower Elementary. Our new Playworks program has affected a lot of kids in our school in a really good way. Over the past 6 years, I have been a student at Mayflower Elementary. I have noticed kids have separated into groups, kids have not played together, and some kids playing alone. Our new program has changed that. Over the past 2 months, kids on the playground have been more accepting of others. More kids are playing games together. Even our playground aides play with us at times. Our new games we have added are really fun, and I like helping the kids play and learn the games.
Hello, I'm Yasmin Siam and I am a junior coach at Mayflower Elementary School. As my fellow junior coaches said, Playworks has affected Mayflower a lot. Now, as I wander around the playground, students are always shrieking with excitement and joy. The games have provided new and exciting options for kids, like pack tag and switch. Now kids play with friends that they may not have played with before, and they try new games they may not have played before. We are proud to be junior coaches, and we love recess on our playground.
Thank you so much, junior coaches. And on behalf of the Monrovia Unified School District and the Board of Education, I have certificates for you tonight for participating in leading the pledge. So when I call your name, come on up and get your certificate, and then we're going to go stand in the middle and take a picture. Okay? Josiah? There you go, buddy. Kyle? Congratulations. And Yasmin.
Outstanding marinas, outstanding. They all three spoke so articulate, a little intimidating too, but that's what we're about. Mayflower is just an awesome school. We're at our roll call. As you can see, Board Vice President Ed Gilliland is not here this evening, as well as Mr. Wong. As far as our report on closed session, we had discussions, but no conclusions were articulated. We had our order of business. The board agenda discusses presentation items, which could include input from representative of agendized matters may be moved up on the agenda. Dr. Rosen, do we have any?
President Williams, members of the board, we'd like to move action item J6 about the Monrovia High School's field turf replacement to follow consent as the first action item. And Dr. Jackson will explain a report change, I believe.
Receive both. Thank you for that. I'd like to approve the
Board
minute.
President Williams, I need to make the addendum recommendations at this time.
Please do so, sir.
Okay, on the personnel report, item number 24, we need to strike that, and I have the backup as an addendum for our assistant there, secretary. And then the other addendum, item number 49, it should be reflected that the effective date should change from 10/26/2018 to 10/31/2018 as the revised resignation date. And I have the backup for that as well.
Thank you for those intelligence, Dr. Jackson. We're all clear here? I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education.
The only question I have on the moving is, does it change anything with the budget at all?
It does not.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question. Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Again, I'd like to entertain a motion for the October 10th, 2008 minutes.
Second.
Ms. Huff?
Board Member Rich,
Yes.
Board Member Hammond,
Yes.
Board President Williams,
Yes.
motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. Recognition and communication. Mr. McGinnis, will you step to the podium and entertain us with this wonderful individual and the likes of Mr. Nathan Hickey?
It is an honor, thank you. President Williams, board members, Superintendent Trosian, Cabinet, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to yet again celebrate and recognize a wonderful Monrovia High School student, one who I've known for many, many years. In fact, we got to know each other when he was just a wee elementary student, perhaps even a kindergartner, many years ago. This is Nathan Hickey. Nathan Hickey is an athlete unlike no other on our campus, unlike a few others on our campus. He's an avid cyclist. He's an accomplished mountain biker and cyclist as well. And he and his family, both of his parents who are here this evening, were the founding members of our Monrovia High School mountain biking club, which turned into an official sport on our campus for the first time ever. So we're forever indebted to that, because that has created an opportunity for our students on our campus who are passionate about cycling and mountain biking to get connected to something that is meaningful on our campus. Well, Nathan not only participates in that regard, but is also has a heart for service, and as a service-minded young man. He cycled from San Francisco, similar to one of our board members, a little bit of a different path, but cycled from San Francisco all the way down to Southern California here in Hollywood over a period of days to raise awareness and funding for pediatric cancer research through the Pablo Foundation. So over a period of 5 or 6 days, I'll let him talk a little bit more specifically about it, riding anywhere from 60 to over 100 miles per day in a group of folks and for a great cause. And so, for a young man like this to take time away from his studies to provide for those less fortunate and in need, it's a humbling opportunity for us to walk in the same hallways as Nathan. So, Nathan, would you please just share with us a little bit about the foundation and what cycling means to you, and perhaps what you plan on doing in the future?
I just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity and for recognizing what I do. I raise money for pediatric cancer research through the Pablo Foundation, and it's been around 10 years probably. I started when I was 8, close to turning 18, so it's been a good 10 years. This is the first year I've done the whole ride, but the year's fundraising goal is close to $1 million. We're at, I think, $903,000. So it's been really good to be a part of that and to raise money for kids with cancer. And in the future, hopefully I could take over and be a big part of cancer research as a whole, and not just pediatric cancer research, but big funding and the goal of finding the cure. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to doing this for many more years. So thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.
Yet another example of Home to Scholars and Champions. This young man is going to be changing lives for many years to come. So on behalf of the Monrovia Unified School District, Nathan, it's an honor to commend you for your commitment for raising awareness for pediatric cancer. Thank you so much.
Mom, Dad, you want to join us? You sure? Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. No pictures, Mom? Congratulations. Mr. and Mrs. Hickey, thank you for the blueprint. Thank you for being outstanding parents. It takes a wonderful household to raise a heart like that. And that's a beautiful thing. So congratulations as parent. As another parent, congratulations. Awesome. Nathan, may I suggest Mr. Hammond on the next trip?
All right, would you? Sure.
You're awesome, man. Keep it up, Nathan. Yes, sir. Let's give him another hand. Dr. Terosian, can you lead us in the acknowledgement of our food service and purchasing department, please?
Absolutely, President Williams, members of the board. About a week ago now, we had a power outage at several of our schools, and it impacted our food services department. Our ability to serve 3,000 meals was impacted that day, and the operations of the district were in jeopardy. And the two departments stepped up and really made sure that no meal was interrupted. We had uninterrupted service, thanks to some ingenuity and use of gas pipes and electric lights. And we had a purchasing department that went out of its way to figure out how to bring in some lanterns so that some of those darker classrooms could be lit. Of course, every teacher impacted revised their lesson plan for the day. Teachers are adept at doing that as well, but I wanted to allow Connie Wu, our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, to say a few words about these two very extraordinary departments who went through great lengths to make sure that this district continued teaching kids.
Thank you, Superintendent Dr. Terosian. And as the superintendent said that because of this individual, their immediate response, and there's no damage for the food. When the refrigerator without power, the food will get damaged. Because of our cafeteria manager and the cafeteria work, their hard work, we did not left any students behind for the meal service on that day, as well as no damage for the food. So I'm very happy for their service and support, and as well of the director of procurement. Nelson is the go-to person in the district, and his district beyond what I can say. And tonight the board and the district recognize their service, and I have a certificate for those peoples. The first one is, of course, our director of procurement and the business support, Nelson Center. Alicia. Alex. Milia. Is Milia here? Okay. Rosa? Hellman? Amanda? Sandy? Thomas? Doris? And Esmeralda? The board?
Congratulations, Food Service Department, and to my buddies, Alicia and Alex. God bless you guys, and thank you for what you do for us. We're at the board member reports. I understand my fellow board members do not have a report, but I would like to remind you that we are going to honor Frank Johnson Memorial Library. Frank Jansen, thank you, Mr. Hammond, on Friday at 3:30. And if you have not received your invitation, I am extending the invitation to all of you because we're excited about this transition of honoring such an individual like Mr. Frank. Public comments. Oh, forgive me. Yeah, it's your second time, so I went right past you, bro. Forgive me.
It's good evening. As President Williams, members of the board, as Dr. Terronison. I messed up your name, sorry about that. As cabinet, friends and families of the Monrovia community, I am pleased to report as that Canyon Oaks High School and Mountain Park School have begun our mentor program for our most at-risk students. Miss Kat Wang, Mr. Marcos Guerrero, and Mrs. Nadia Guerrero have volunteered to serve as our mentors for the second consecutive year. We would like to publicly thank them for their willingness to carve out time in their busy schedules each week to meet with our mentees. Our counselors and administrators met yesterday to confirm the start date for our book club in partnership with the Monrovia Public Library. Mrs. Balayan, the Monrovia librarian over youth services, will begin her monthly lunch share-out meetings in January with 10 lucky Canyon Oaks students. Our admin team met with Mrs. Shannon Fitzgerald on Monday to finalize plans to paint our school names and logo on the walls just outside as the entry doors of our school. And lastly, our football team won their first game last week, and we look forward to starting our basketball season on Halloween. Thank you.
Awesome. Great job, man. Dr. Terosian?
Thank you, President Williams. Members of the board, I just want to call your attention to the photos that Ms. Huff will cycle through, recognizing Red Ribbon Week at many of our schools. Our kids pledged to make good decisions, stay drug-free, and as you saw, some of the signs, make healthy choices. I was at Monroe, and I had the opportunity to participate in one of the activities, and just you'll see my handprint on one of those signs soon. So thank you to the teams at each of our schools who really made this an occasion and reminded students to make some good decisions about their futures.
Thank you, Dr. Terosian. As I mentioned earlier, we're at our public comments. As you know by now, if you fill out a form, we will acknowledge you. So with that said, do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda, Ms. Huff?
Yes, Board President Williams. The first request to speak comes from Olivia Nelson, Ms. Maritza Taranti, and Gail Montgomery.
Thank you.
Hello, Board. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you guys for a few minutes. I just wanted to take this time to update you on the fundraising efforts we did for the I Ride For You fundraiser event by our board member, Mr. Rob Hammond, at the end of the last school year. It was a huge effort, and the funds have continued to come in still to this day, but we're kind of trickling towards where it's slowing down. And we raised $6,443.85 that will be distributed to each of our schools and support our PTAs. It will be giving things like art supplies to help bolster the art programs that you guys already have in each of our schools. It helps fund field trips, and many community events like the Moon Festivals at Plymouth or the fall festivals that all of our schools have. So I just wanted to take the minute to thank our community and people who might not always be fundraising for our schools for all of their generous donations and efforts for our students here. And I know it's not very typical for PTAs to speak about our fundraisers, but this was such a neat opportunity that impacted our community, and wanted to just say thank you and report it out to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that Olivia played a huge role in all of this, in creating the website for the fundraiser, and it was a great website because it chronicled not only what Mr. Hammond did, but also, you know, those who were contributing. And we had a lot of people from the community, not necessarily those that had students in the schools or were PTA members, but just community stakeholders that really contributed and made this happen. So we want to thank everybody in the community for their efforts, and of course Mr. Hammond's efforts for making the PTA a benefactor of your trip. I Ride for You.
And I worked a little bit on the fundraising, and I just want to remind the people in the community that if you are going to donate, check with your employer and see if your employer will donate any dollars for your efforts. I was able to get $500 of my company's money. It didn't cost me anything, simply by volunteering, and there are many companies that do this. My own personal donation is very small, but my company matches that. So find out where you can to find the free money that's out there, that low-hanging fruit that we often forget. And Rob, Mr. Hammond, sir, when we heard you're going to ride with Mr. Hickey, I turned around to the girls, and we're back in business if you need us.
Thank you. Ms. Sutherland, do we have any other items not on the agenda?
Yes, Board President Williams, the next request to speak comes from Celine Lockerbie.
Good evening. My name is Celine Lockerbie. I am a parent of 2 elementary school children here in Monroe. Over a year ago, I started a campaign with a few community members against spraying harmful pesticides and herbicides in public parks in Monrovia. Becky Shevlin responded and enlisted our city manager, Oliver Chi, to investigate. Mr. Chi, his staff, and the city council were extremely proactive and have halted the spraying of harmful chemicals in all of Monrovia's public parks. We asked if the use of harmful chemicals could also be halted in our schools' grounds. Mr. Chi mentioned that the schools were not under city jurisdiction, so we reached out to the district's manager of maintenance operations and transportation, Larry Cross. Mr. Cross and Mr. Santos have been very receptive and communicative regarding this issue. I want to express my gratitude to Mr. Cross, Mr. Santos, Ms. Garay, and Ms. Wu for meeting with us this past Monday, and they have committed to researching alternatives to the use of harmful pesticides and herbicides while upholding maintenance of our campuses and being considerate of the budget. They will be presenting their findings to the board in upcoming months, and I look forward to the board adopting alternative methods of campus maintenance while improving the environment for our children, teachers, staff, and community. Thank you so much for all that you have done, and I appreciate your commitment and your research and the time that you've given to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Huth, we have any additionals not on the agenda?
Yes, Board President Williams, the next request is from Rohia Yule.
Thank you.
Hello again, my name is Ruhia Yule. I am a community member in Monrovia, and my comments are particularly about the presentation that happened at the last board meeting. I have 3 issues that I'd like to attack and 1 solution to the problem that I see in the presentation. The first problem with the presentation happened when there was a citation of Hattie's research in order to what seemed to me either justify or validate a lack of priority given to small class sizes. I'm just going to mention 3 researchers who have significant issues with the technical work of Mr. Hattie's research. We know that he does meta-analysis. I apologize to the members in the audience who weren't here. So the people that I'm going to mention really quickly is a professor at the Institute of Education at London, Dr. William, a professor of education at, sorry, I turned 42 and I can't see anymore. Professor of education at Massey University in New Zealand. These are not American institutions because Mr. Hattie is actually not an American researcher. So he's from New Zealand, John O'Neill. And their major concerns are with the idea of meta-analysis being used in educational research. And they actually basically say that it's not a established method for doing educational research, and the conclusions can actually be over-justified. So the particular point that I was thinking about was class size, remember? And so these particular researchers say that, and Hattie himself says that it's not class size alone. So he doesn't say that there's no impact of class size on student achievement, but he's saying class size alone does not impact student achievement. He instead says that it's class size along with effective and highly trained teachers, which last session the district and the board commented over and over again we have. So to me, logically, it seems that class size would be something that we support because we have such highly trained and amazing teachers. My last two issues were related to sort of the system of comments at the board meetings. I'm just confused because at the board meetings that I've attended, and I've attended more of them in the city of Baldwin Park because that's where I teach, that during the public comment like this, the comments are restricted from, we're the floor, so from the podium, let's say you guys are the podium, board members and people sitting in chairs here. So you hear our comments and there's not a back and forth conversation. I've tried to do research and look up those procedures and I haven't found anything written, but that's been my experience. At the last several board meetings I've been to, public comment has been made, and then there's been comment coming at us from the board or the district. And then we don't have any opportunity to respond back because that's not how we understand that the discourse happens. And it just seems, it doesn't seem, it feels ingenuine and aggressive. And it doesn't facilitate communication. So my suggestion is that in other school districts, there's these task forces and committees, and I know we have 1 million of them, but they're intended to hash out issues before they come to a space like this. So the school recommends a teacher and a parent to participate in this group, and they come together and they have conversations about the issues that are happening at their school and to get questions answered quickly. I also suggest that the system that they occur in be through appreciative inquiry so that it stays positive and looking forward for solutions rather than getting stuck in the mud. Appreciative inquiry is a huge thing in education and social studies research, so it's super easy to find. And then finally, it seemed to me from comments from this side of the podium that there was an understanding that we, the community, don't have a right and don't have a function to ask for information. It got aggressive and inappropriate, and we were not accusing anybody of anything, simply asking for information. And anywhere that you look for school board functioning, it's transparency is one of the top 8. I have a picture of the top 8 successful school boards, which I have to make bigger because I'm old again. But one of them is collaborative relationship with staff and the community. So we saw last session collaborative relationship with staff, but it wasn't super collaborative with the community because we were accused of not trusting y'all. And it also has that is accountability driven. So that's 2 of the 8. So I'd like to suggest that committee that I was talking about in order to improve collaboration and communication between all bodies and all stakeholders in the district. And then I'd just like us to all reflect and figure out, well, how does the meeting work? Who's talking, who's responding, when should we respond? Because when somebody's at the podium saying, did you do this, did you do this, did you do this, and we're in the audience and we can't say anything, that's just inappropriate and uncomfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. With regards to our responsive and exchange, it is the law, and that prohibits us from making any response other than receiving your comments and having to follow up. Ms. Huff, do we have any other comments not on the agenda?
Yes, Board President Williams, the last request to speak comes from Amber Tellez.
Thank you.
Good evening. Most of you know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Amber Tellez Mitchell, and I have 2 children here in the school district, a 4th grader at Brad Oaks Elementary and a 6th grader at Clifton. I am also a product of this district, and I have lived in this community most of my life. So I have a vested interest in the success of our public schools. I have been coming to these board meetings for a few months now, and I feel like I've gotten to know who is on the panel. I feel like I've gotten to know what roles you all play and how our district works. And something that has been really concerning to me as I've been coming here is that I feel like there is a lack of accountability. As a parent, one of the first things we teach our kids when they do something wrong is to apologize. I messed up, I'm sorry, and to hold them accountable for their actions. If you steal someone's cookie, you give back the cookie and apologize. If you can't give back the cookie, you get them a new cookie and apologize. Accountability, it's important. It's important in civil society. And I feel like as a whole, our country has drifted away from accountability. We don't apologize when we screw up anymore. We don't apologize when we make mistakes. We defend our actions, whether or not they hurt somebody else or whether or not they were the right choice to make. We want to defend them to the end without ever being held accountable. Now, I'm not saying that if you are feeling strongly you have made the right choice that you should apologize just because, but if you have negatively impacted someone else with your choice, I think that deserves an apology. I am saying that there are very clearly obvious times when we make mistakes and we should apologize and be accountable for our actions. In the instance with what happened to my daughter's class at Brad Oaks, there was a mistake made. Somewhere at this district level, my daughter's class size was set at 35 last May. 35 students in a combination class where teachers and parents all raised concerns that it was too large a class to be teaching 2 separate curriculums. They said it was too big for a combination class and that children could not learn well in that environment. And yet, the class was set at 35 in May. During the planning meetings, the school year started and parents raised concerns, teachers raised concerns, and nothing was done to change the size of that class. The matter was not addressed until 4 weeks into the school year. And I understand, I heard all of the reasons that it takes time to make the changes. I heard all the other mitigating factors in the presentation last week, that you are waiting to hear about the enrollment at Plymouth. I get it. But what I am hearing is that you, the district, waited too long to make the change in this class, and nobody has said, I am sorry. We waited too long to make the changes to that class. My daughter's and her classmates' education has been impacted. My daughter's education started over at the 4 weeks mark into the school year. At the last meeting on October 10th, we were hitting the 8-week mark, and she was just getting back to where she was when her original class was broken apart. That's nearly 2 months of learning lost for all of those kids. 2 months! And nobody has looked at me or my daughter or her classmates and said, I am sorry, we messed up. And I am not saying that that would make everything better. My daughter is still 2 months behind, but the fact that you would hold yourselves accountable would certainly help. At the last meeting, you sat here and told me all the reasons why this happened and threw charts and numbers at me, explaining things that I did not ask to be explained. What I really wanted to know is this going to happen again? Who is to say that next year, if my daughter is placed in another combination class, this wouldn't happen? What is going to prevent this from happening? I want to know that you have procedures and policies in place and that there is a rule that says combination class sizes cannot have more than 28 students. I want to know that you are taking action against making this mistake again, and that is what's going to make me feel better. You gave a presentation last meeting about how you project the numbers for the next school year and where the numbers are derived from, and the amount of district transfers handed out and the teacher pension plan spending. And I appreciated it. I learned a lot more about what happens behind the scenes. but I feel like some of the arguments made by the board members were really unfair. You sat up there and directly addressed questions to us in the audience that we cannot publicly answer. We cannot respond back to you. It felt so inappropriate that you were pointing questions at us. We are concerned parents and community members, and we are raising our concerns about what is happening in our children's classroom, which is what our job is. And I felt fully attacked at the last meeting. That was not okay. You do not get to engage with us in that way. That is not how this works. I am aware of that, and you should be aware of that. It was very frustrating sitting in the audience at the last meeting, not being able to raise questions or concerns about the presentation or even have a dialogue over the information that was being presented. But I understand how the parliamentary system works, so I saved my remarks for this meeting. Here they are. I'm going to go through the presentation. I'm going to look at the things that I have questions and comments about, and I'm going to formally request that you answer them at the next meeting on November 14th. I do not need another presentation. I would merely like a district representative to answer these questions publicly and on the record during the course of that meeting. Number one, by limiting the amount of interdistrict permits over the last 4 years, you have increased enrollment by 190 students. At $6,000 per student, that increases our funding by $1,140,000. During that discussion, Mr. Williams commented, losing students because they don't like our school district is just false. These are facts. We are not losing kiddos because we have a terrible school district. First off, I have never made that claim, nor have I ever heard anyone else make that claim. My question to you is, why are you losing kids? Have you ever asked the parents? Have you ever questioned the people who are pulling their kids from public schools and placing them in private schools? Have you looked at the studies or researched why enrollment in public schools is declining? It seems like a very arrogant charge to claim that we are great and we have a great school district and nothing we are doing is causing the decline in enrollment. The fact of the matter is, enrollment is falling. It is falling statewide. So what are you going to do to combat that? What is your plan? And do you have one? Number two, Mr. Williams also implied that my initial comments on September 12th that I was disparaging the staff at the district office. I am not and was not ever disparaging or calling out specific staff members about doing their job. My questions were directly about how the numbers were decided and who made what decisions. And I want to publicly state here that I appreciate Mr. Conway's explanation and Dr. Jackson's explanations, and I appreciate both of them taking time after the presentation to explain things a little more further in depth to me after the presentation. Number three, there was a slide that Dr. Jackson addressed called the Cde Pupil-Teacher Ratio. On that slide, you claimed that the pupil-teacher ratio at Brad Oaks for this year is 20.9 to 1. Which it is. But you neglected to also state that that number includes both the special day classes at our school, which have enrollment numbers of 9 in the K through 2 class and 14 in the 3rd through 5th class. When you include these two classes in the average, it dramatically drops our numbers down to 20.9 students per teacher. That's inaccurate. Our actual teacher to pupil ratio is 25.9 to 1. When you include that average, it skews the numbers. Number four, Mr. Hammond, the timing of moving teachers around. You stated that it was 2 weeks after. It was not 2 weeks after school started, which I would have found easier to stomach. It was 4 weeks after school started. My daughter changed classrooms on September 12th, and we started school on the August 15th. Number five, and I'm incredibly disappointed that he is not here tonight, I want to address this directly to Mr. Wong. Mr. Wong, at the last meeting, you asked some very pointed questions about who in the district released the information about the proposed changes to parents at the beginning of the year, causing people to storm the castle, as you put it. I believe the exact line of questioning, and I'm going to quote directly from what he said here, was, Mr. Wong, did the principals share this information with their staff? District representatives? I believe so, because we want our impacted staff members to be prepared for potential changes. Mr. Wong, were the staff members instructed to tell their parents? Did the principals instruct their staff to tell their parents? District, no. Mr. Wong, directed at Miss Battle, did the union instruct their staff to tell their parents? Miss Battle, no. Mr. Wong, did anyone else know about this other than the principals and the district office and the teachers and the board? The district. We did not want to cause alarm in parents by prematurely sharing any information, so it would not have been anything that we would have communicated. Then he said this. That's the problem, because it did happen, and it can't happen for the exact reason that we creates all kinds of distress. I shouldn't say we, because it was not a we. It was somebody, some people, for their own personal reasons, decide that they should share information knowing full well that there was a plan in place. Is that a fair assessment? I am trying to understand what happened and why we ran into a problem. At that moment, Mr. Wong engaged with a member of the audience. It seemed clear to me that that moment he was specifically asking a question to that member of the audience who responded to you. At the end, Dr. Thorosian said, this can be investigated further and we can have conversations about this. So my question is, Mr. Wong, who are you putting the blame on? Are you blaming the parents who spoke to one another about the concerns at their children's school? Are you blaming the teachers who may have disseminated information to parents whose children may have been affected by these drastic changes? Are you blaming the principals who were instructed to inform their teachers? Are you blaming the district representatives who sounded the alarms on the Friday afternoon, the third day of school? In the presentation that was given at the last meeting, it was stated that on the Monday after the start of school, you always see a large jump in enrollment numbers. If that is the case, why on earth was anybody sounding the alarms to anyone the Friday before that? Why didn't you wait to talk to the principals and the teachers until Monday when you had a more realistic plan or a realistic idea of the numbers? It seems to me that the fault of this situation is not with the parents who raised their voices in concern, nor with the teachers who were preparing to make changes in their classroom, nor with the principals who did as they were instructed, but with the district representatives who sounded the alarm far too early. And here we are, back to the subject of accountability. Mr. Wong, it is clear that you showed disdain for the fact that the information was presented in the last board meeting in the way it was. You made it clear that all this information was stuff that the board members are already privy to. But as a member of the public who was not aware of how the upcoming school year projections are created, I appreciated that information being presented in the way it was. I would also like to state one last thing on this particular subject. The parents who stormed the castle were not the enemy. We are your employers. We are the people that you as our representatives are accountable to. We have every right to know about the changes and potential changes that may affect our children. And I understand that the information about the possible changes may have leaked out earlier than you would have wanted, but the reaction about those changes would not have been any different if it were the following week and you had actually decided to go through with that plan. The parents in this community care about our schools, and we care about the education that our children are receiving. We have been awakened, we are paying attention, and I promise you, you will be hearing from us on a regular basis, because the bottom line is, you work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Huff, do we have any other people that are not on the agenda making comments?
There are none.
Okay. With that said, is there any public comments for items on the open session agenda?
There are none.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. Next, we'll move for reports and presentations. One in the likes of a Monrovia Community Adult School. Mr. Flint.
Good evening, President, members of the school board, Dr. Trosian, and cabinet. We're grateful to be here this evening to be able to give you this presentation concerning the Monrovia Community Adult School. It's going to be a common theme that we're going to talk about tonight, and it's data. We have a lot going on, and we want to make sure that we kind of keep you guys abreast. A lot has changed just in the past calendar year as far as the state's mandates, as far as the amount of information that we have to produce, and the level of accountability. And it's been very quick, and the changes have been pretty big, but we're excited that our district has been so supportive and has kept up with us, and we've been able to continue to have success. For tonight's purposes, we'd like to talk about the funding sources and overview those so we're all aware of the money that is coming in and supporting these programs. The Adult Ed program update, what we're being asked to do as an adult school. We'd like to talk just quickly and briefly about the Citrus College Consortium, of which we are a member, and then give you an update there, and then talk about the student demographic and outcome data that is driving what we do for the community of Monrovia. And then the challenges that we brought to this exact report last year that we shared with the board, and talk about ways that we have addressed those exact challenges. Starting with our projected funding, we have multiple sources of funding, as you can see in front of you. The Adult Ed Maintenance of Effort funds are at $1,092,809. That funding level has not changed. It just stays the same. So despite increasing costs, healthcare costs, raises, cost of living adjustments that occur, we are getting that exact same maintenance of effort. We have Adult Ed allocation funds that come to us directly from the Citrus College Consortium based on the results that we're doing and our ability to maintain and meet the goals of the plan of the Citrus College Adult Ed Consortium. We receive 231, 243 Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act dollars, also known as WIOA grant. Oh, I missed the district allocation because it's so small, $250,000. We'd like to get more, but we understand that in tough times, that's what we have. That basically goes to the building and the upkeep and the lease that occurs there, and some other programs that we run for the high school programs. The WIOA Enforced Investment Opportunity Act at $335,820. That's a big year for us. We were lucky to have good results that brought that up this year. We know that due to the fact that there's some competition with that grant and some other people bringing it, that fund could go down next year, but it was a good year this year. Very similar to the CalWorks grant. That one, you're just kind of throwing a dart at the dartboard if you try to predict what's going to come. We just don't know, but we certainly try to serve that clientele and show results, and then we get our number usually about 2 years later. They actually give us the funding for the results of that year. Fees, we estimate that we will bring in this year about $350,000 in fees. I'm telling you that's a very conservative estimate. And we'll talk about our marketing efforts. A couple years ago when we were on a 3-year projection, just so you know, the projection for this year prior to that in the budget that I was sharing with Mr. Conway as we were kind of looking in the future was $120,000. So we're very proud of the efforts that we've done to target market and to bring in the clients who do need our services and to bring those fees up. And the total amount of our operating budget, $2,482,054. Some of the changes, they no longer call our program the Adult Ed Block Grant, and there's some legislation that may make this not a grant at all. As a matter of fact, they're almost there, and that's a good thing as far as we're concerned. The new name for our program is AEP, the Adult Ed Program. Pretty simple. Didn't have time to think of that. This is to send a message that this is not a typical grant, and the state has dedicated funds now that are going to support the adult ed. And having gone through some lean times, that's something we're extremely grateful for. New adult ed developments, the state with that money and that has said that they will simply have stricter oversight and reporting requirements. And in front of you, Mr. Russell has kind of put out some of the annual data review. That's a very extensive, actually it's a synopsis of a much more extensive report that we put together, and but that'll give you some good ideas about the data that's there, and we wanted that to be out. There is a new financial reporting system that we work very closely with David Conway, who also services our entire consortium, and we have to put that together and consistently input data into that as well. We have a new data reporting system called Launchboard, not Launchpad, Launchboard. And so that's kind of the adult ed version of Launchpad. And the two, in the future, as the state kind of gets that together, should talk, and we should be able to track students better and service their needs. There's a tremendous amount of guidance being pushed out. We have a state-level field teams that are being organized that are up at Sacramento. I'm proud to say that Mr. Russell actually serves as an officer on one of those teams and is in Sacramento regularly for that purpose, and has made some extremely good connections that have put us in a very good light in Monrovia. And he can speak to those a little bit later. He's going to finish up with some of the deep data at the end of the report. And there are a large number of trainings. Someone asked me the other day, how's work going? And I just went through this myriad of meetings that it seems like we have to be in for this. And it feels like that's all we do for a living anymore is go to meetings. But that training has been beneficial and we've learned a lot. And once again, we really are in many ways leading the way. So our Adult Ed Consortium consists of the 6 members of Adult Ed districts that surround us, as well as Citrus College. And we continue to serve as the fiscal agent. And we wanted to remind the board and those stakeholders that this is a good thing for us. Monrovia Unified School District Administration does provide the expertise in the data management, the fiscal management, and the program management with Mr. Russell, myself, and Mr. Conway working in those areas. And the adult ed funds from that benefit our district. MUSD has earned $81,718 in administrative fees for serving as a fiscal agent over the last 3 years, and $198,243 in indirect adult ed program fees over the last 3 years. So for 2018-19, to kind of break that down as to what we can bring into our district as serving in that capacity, the indirect fees for the adult ed program funds, $72,162 would be due to Monrovia Unified School District. And for the adult ed program fiscal agent, being that agent, $23,002. And for the WIOA indirect fees, $13,433. So bringing a total that would be income to the district for these oversights, $108,597. The consortium performance data is driving our efforts. So we have regional data that is becoming critical to the adult ed program oversight. This creates a lot of time, and I can't emphasize enough the weight that really has been put on many of the employees who work under me. Long hours, long weekends, sometimes putting these programs together, and my hat's off. There is an amazing group of dedicated employees who serve this community in the adult ed program. And I know K-12 is what we're about. But you need to know that those of you who love and know Monrovia know that there are other needs out there. And the work and the love and the dedication that goes into this, I'm always amazed on a Saturday at 6 in the morning to get the alarm company and come down and find 8 or 9 people in a room getting together, writing stuff, putting budget proposals together, putting things that just work all the time. There's a passion, and they do it for this community. Be proud. I'm very proud to be part of that team, and I know that you guys are as well. So Monrovia Annual Data Review is available for the board tonight. We've passed that out. And then the Citrus College Adult Ed Consortium Regional Annual Data Review will be available by December 1st, and it will be found on our consortium website. And we can also get hard copies to everybody if you care to kill some trees, because it'll be big. The data is the focus in the Moving the Needle conference that we will be having hosted here by Monrovia on December 14th, and we're working with our team here. Our coaches from the Monrovia Unified School District will be helping us with that staff development. Dr. Kaiser has stepped forward and kind of taken a big hand in helping us plan it, and we just want to publicly thank the district for realizing that we were kind of underwater with that one and extending a helping hand. This is a big conference, and there will be many adult ed educators and the adult schools of our consortium who will be there, who will benefit from this. A lot of vendors want to come and help sponsor it by buying lunch and things like that. It's a big one, and a lot will be covered, and we're just proud to be able to be the school that they looked at and said, you guys need to host. So the 3-year planning process is beginning. We're in year 4, aren't we, of our 3-year plan? So yeah, so the state is a little slow to ask for the new information, but they are putting it together now, and we're going to be working very hard. So some of the data, just to drill down, and we're not going to take much of your evening, but some of this is pretty poignant and I think important. That is understood specifically as the decision makers as a school board. We want you to kind of look at some of the changes and shifts in adult ed, some of the data of who we're serving, the demographics of what we're serving. Our unemployment is very low in the country right now. For adult eds, that's kind of a, what do we do now? But we have done an amazing job of drilling down, marketing, finding the people who still have those needs, and serving them. We wanted to turn time over, if I can, to Mr. Russell, my assistant principal, to kind of go a little further into that data.
Just very quickly, Board President Williams and Board and Cabinet, Dr. Therosian, thank you. Just very quickly, just to get into some of the demographics. The bottom right corner, you can see for our total unduplicated enrollment is 2,073. This is just for adults that are in our programs, which would be English as a second language, basic academics, high school diploma or high school equivalency, and then career technical, and then people that come to our one stop. In addition to that, we have probably about 350 adults that come to our what we call our arts and crafts tour. We have about 2,450 adults that are unduplicated that we serve in a variety of ways, and it's a very, very important mission that we have in addressing the needs of these populations. We have a lot of adults that are coming to learn English and learning how to assimilate into American culture and American customs, and we take that very seriously. And as Mr. Fertig said, we've been dealing with a 4% unemployment. The people that are needing to get into the workforce have been out of the workforce for quite some time and are in grave need of skills, and we've been really working hard with that population to help them be successful. Just very quickly, you have a huge document. These are just two things that I wanted to talk about, and some measurable gains that you're going to see. We have federal requirements as to how we measure success, and it's pre and post test, certain number of hours. That defines a student. I want you to just see very quickly from 15-16, where we only had 7 that were pre and post tested, to 17-18 in our ABE is adult basic education, so that's just basic academics also, and that included to that would be high school diploma students and high school equivalencies. So we had 90 students that pre and post tested and had a gain or an outcome that was 62%. Now we dropped a little from 16-17 to 17-18, but what I do want to point out, as you see, the total percentage in 16-17 was 89% moved to functioning level. That could be graduation, that could be moving from one level to the next in ESL, and we moved about 10 points lower this year. But what I would like to point out is that that's about 40 to 50% higher than the state, the county, and our consortium. So our results, and you can see them in this report compared to our I'm sorry, not in this one, but in the regional report, you will see that we are far and away above, much better in getting outcomes than our consortium partners, the county and the state. Also, just looking at some graduates, you can see about 40%, which has been a tremendous increase. With us offering the HiSET, the high school equivalency test, which is recognized for FAFSA purposes so that you can get financial aid at the next level. We're having a lot of excellent outcomes with that. So I'm just going to pass this now back to Mr. Fertig, but I do encourage you to take a look at the annual data review. It talks about our community and talks about the outcomes that we're getting, and I think that you'll find it pretty informative as to what's happening right now and on campus.
Great. So as I mentioned at this meeting last year, we brought up the challenge that we faced with revenue funding, and this kind of shows that we were looking at some difficulties. One, the 231 and 243 grant are it's a guess. Like I said, you're throwing a dart at a dartboard and hoping you get the right number. In addition, our CalWorks dollars are very up and down, and it's not our performance that dictates that. It's the amount of money that's left over in the coffers when the state gets ready to kind of deal it out. And so we just can't control those funding sources. We also were looking at healthcare costs rising for our employees that have healthcare costs, STRS and PERS contributions also rising, and then salary increases, which with our capped funding, we're not given a COLA the way the rest of the K-12 programs are. So the result was we went out after this meeting last year and we looked at opportunities, and again, my staff came through with the targeted marketing principle. We were able to find vendors who could market us specifically to a footprint, and we gave a good report to the board after that started. I'd like to just say something. Remember about 4 years ago when we were putting our budgets forward, we thought about $120,000 in fees for this whole year. We currently, for the first quarter, $179,000 first quarter. And that is a direct result of simply getting these emails and pop-ups out to everybody who has Googled or Yahooed or looked in any way, shape, or form for pharmacy tech, for construction, for any of these great programs that we have. And if you're in our area, we're bringing you in. So we had a construction meeting, and I don't know how many were there. At least it felt like 60 or 70 people came and showed up for that. Before, we used to market with a little flyer on the doors, we'd get 6 or 7. So this has been a huge, huge benefit to us. And though it comes with a cost, because we're paying the company the percentage of what we bring in, the revenues that we are getting are significant. With that extra push comes extra work. And I've been, cracking the whip on the staff, but we're really excited, but we are doing some restructuring and some shoving around, trying to figure out who's taking on a lot of this. And I just appreciate the patience that my staff's had, the patience of the district, and also their willingness. We're constantly being approached, and people are constantly asking, how can we help? And that's what makes Monrovia a great team, because if we were alone or in a silo, we would have gone under with this amount of work that's hit us. But we have a tremendous staff at the district who has stepped up and they realize what we're doing. They realize the good things that are happening, the income that's coming in, and we just can't thank you guys enough for your support, because it's been a huge pull. But not only is there light at the end of the tunnel, but there are great and happy days ahead, because we met the fiscal challenge by increasing that tuition, increasing through that targeted marketing, the leverage fees of the American Job Centers. Those targeting market efforts have brought in online techniques that we didn't even imagine you could find people this way. But the result is that $350,000 in fees, that's a good 200 plus more than we originally budgeted for. So we're no longer falling off the 3-year cliff that everybody in education seems to fall off. Our future looks really good, and we're excited.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Fertig or Mr. Russell's excellent presentation?
I do want to take a moment to thank both Mr. Fertig and Mr. Russell for their help in putting this together and for their tireless efforts on behalf of not just the adult ed program, but for every program in the district. These guys don't sleep.
No, just a comment. You guys do a great job. It's like you're Pied Pipers. You built your program, both of you. You were given very little, and you exceeded beyond everybody's expectation. Probably exceeded your own expectations. Great job.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, I just want to say thank you. And I know he hasn't said it enough. And I know that we've been through some lean times together, and you had to make some difficult decisions back. But we feel like we're in a really new area. We want to be a really good partner in what it are now, again, with STIRS and other issues, difficult budget times. But we know, and we try to put out as often as we can, how this board has been a longtime supporter of adult education in this community. And when other communities gave up on it, and a lot of communities did, we got through some really tough times, and it's because of the people that were sitting here. And so there's a tremendous amount of gratitude that we have. He scratched and clawed and kept it open, but there was never a doubt that this board supported us, and even our partners. They had meetings where the board was ready to shut them down, and that was never an issue here, never an issue. And because of it, we get to see adults whose lives are completely transformed. You get to see people, it's really heartening to see people come in and take advantage of the services that we offer and transform their lives. So it's because of your commitment, so thank you.
And I want to thank you too, excuse me, just touch on something you mentioned, Flint, when you talk about K through 12 is what the district is about. And you're right, compulsory education is what public school districts are about for the most part, but what you and John and everyone in this district who is involved with adult education here do is nothing short of remarkable. You fill a need. You work for people who have fallen through the gaps in public education, not in Monrovia, in a region, in this entire region, and you provide education to those who need jobs, who need help in an area, whatever it may be, with families, and you care about people, and that non-compulsory education is so important, and you do such a great job, so thank you very much.
Thanks.
Also, I'd like to add that Catherine Barger's office and the visit at Animaid, they're still talking about it. Yeah,
They've been so helpful. That was such a great meeting because we had a cohort of students that were coming through the summer, and every AJCC we went to said, no, we don't have the money, we don't have the money. I reached out through the connections that we made through Catherine Barger's office, And suddenly the right levers got pushed and money appeared, and 10 students were able to get trained, and all 10 of those students are now working their way up. Many of them have the desire to not only be a CNA, but to move into nursing school. And that CNA piece is that first step of the career ladder. And so because of that meeting, good things happen. So it was such a great meeting.
Yeah, and that meeting doesn't happen because of Flint and John or the teachers. That meeting happened because of your guys' connections. And we know that. We're not going to pretend we did that meeting. But when the high-level politicians from Sacramento and the county office talk about, hey, we met Terrence at this, or we saw Rob at that, or Chris at that. We know, and thank you for keeping us in their thoughts and in minds, because then when we are able to show them what we do, they don't come to us if we don't have that. And they are still talking about it, and I think that if you didn't bring them to us, we couldn't have shown them. Not every adult ed gets the county supervisor and the representatives from Sacramento to come and tour their campus. So that helps.
As Mr. Riz said, it's just a matter of bringing them to what we have, and they were so entertained. Yeah. I mean, tremendously, and that effort has migrated all the way to South Pass. As you know, our new cheerleader in South Pasadena, the city councilman. But I concur with Mr. Ridge, Mr. Hammond. You guys are just awesome.
Well, it's a team effort, and we sure thank everybody for their support.
Thank you. Any comments for these gentlemen? If not, let's move forward. And Dr. Kaiser, will you entertain us with the dual immersion program expansion, please?
Certainly. Good evening, President Williams, Board, Dr. Trosian, Cabinet, and community. It is my delight tonight to talk about our dual immersion programs in Monrovia Unified School District, and it's just amazing to see how the interest in the expansion is happening and the preparations as we're moving forward. So we're going to be talking about the success of these programs and then where the expansion is going to be, where we're looking to expand. And so in this overview, I'll be talking about the best practices in dual immersion programs, 7 guiding principles, some of the research behind the successes of dual programs for children, the challenges, and then what some of Monrovia's next steps are. And so to begin with, our dual immersion task force, which was led by Dr. Lily Jarvis, had people from Monroe Elementary School, Plymouth Elementary School, Clifton Middle School, Monrovia High School, and it was inclusive of teachers, administrators, and parents. These task force meetings occurred all year last year on a pretty regular basis, where this group got together and they looked at the beginnings of drafting a dual immersion master plan for the district. And they started by looking at what are the principles behind dual programs. They didn't start with the plan. They started with what do we need to know about dual programs and those people that have gone before us. And so they began by developing a mission. And in the mission, they had 3 major elements. One is for our students to attain biliteracy, to value diversity, and to develop cross-cultural competencies. So it's much more than just learning another language. It's actually understanding the people groups. And then the second part was to develop this comprehensive master plan that considers the 7 guiding principles. And these 7 guiding principles are becoming the structure in the development of all of our programs, elementary through high school. So what are the 7 guiding principles? In the 7 guiding principles, the first one talks about program structure. And so when we're looking at program structure, really it's looking at the level of the academic achievement, bilingualism and biliteracy, and social cultural competence. So how are kids achieving their level of bilingualism or developing the 2 languages and understanding the social and cultural competence? When we think about our programs, we keep hearing about the moon celebration at Plymouth, how they ate mooncakes, and they had NASA come from JPL with their big telescope, and they looked at the moon through that telescope, and they celebrated the moon through the same lens that they may celebrate the moon in China. That was for the whole school, not just the students that are learning Mandarin. And that's part of that cross-cultural competence that we want to see develop in all of our schools that have this, this dual immersion program. The second thing that we look at is the curriculum. And the curriculum, we have guidance from the state in terms of what's on the state adoption to select from. And in our curriculum, we do select high quality curriculum that is selected by the teachers, and it's piloted before the selection. Then as a school district, we bring the pilot before the board, and it's adopted through our process. Then the next thing that we look at is the instruction, sending our teachers to some conferences to learn the best way to teach children for language acquisition, because the goal is to learn everything that we need them to learn academically in science and social studies, math, and to come out on the other end with competency in 2 languages. Family and community. The program has a responsive infrastructure for positive, active, and ongoing relations with students, families, and the community. And then the last 3 are assessment and accountability. So we look for those assessment pieces where we can compare our students' achievement, not just here in Monrovia with one singular number, but how are our students lining up when we look at them across other dual programs in the state. So we're looking at some broader assessment pieces. The support and resource, make sure that we have supports in place for our students, that we have enough reading material for children in the target languages, as well as having those the English resources, because they're learning 2 languages. And then staff quality and professional development. We work hard to recruit amazing teachers and to retain them, and to find those teachers that have competency in 2 languages. And all of our teachers at this point are certified with the BCLAD credential. So, what does the research say? The first piece of research that is alluded to here talks about reading programs. And when you look at students that are in dual programs, by grade 5, they are 7 months ahead of their peers that are in regular English-only classes. Now, that seems counterintuitive, but this research has been done over and over again, and these are the results nationwide. And then by grade 8, they're 9 months ahead. Then we look at English language learners. If we have English language learners in these programs, how are they achieving? Nationwide, the English language learners by 6th grade are learning English at quite a fine rate, because they're learning English and their native language, so their cognitive development is developing at a very high level with vocabulary that transfers between the 2 languages. And so as we look at another piece, our state superintendent has an initiative that he calls Global California 2030. So we look at Monrovia and we think, okay, we have these dual programs, one in Mandarin, one in Spanish. You know, are we doing something that's unique unto just ourselves? And the answer is no. The state superintendent released this report, Global California 2030, in May 2018. And what he's proposing is that by 2030, half of all K-12 students will participate in dual immersion programs. So in order for us to keep up, we do need to expand our programs so that as we're developing and we're looking at our students competing in a global economy, in a global marketplace, having 2 languages is an amazing thing for them. He's proposing that the goal is the seal of biliteracy number will triple by 2030. Monrovia has had a long history of preparing students for the seal of biliteracy, but increasing those numbers will be something that we will be looking at. And then he's looking that the number of dual immersion programs will quadruple by 2030. So our programs have had a natural expansion. We haven't been out marketing them heavily. They have been proof positive that this is good for children, and children have come to us. And so we are right in line with actualizing these goals. We are looking at actually Wild Rose Elementary School as our next dual school and beginning a TK and kindergarten program there. We do have a bit of a decline in the enrollment at Wild Rose Elementary School, and these are the numbers.
And Dr. Kaiser, what I want to make sure to correct right now so that we don't get into the old habits is Wild Rose School of Creative Arts, because our challenge is not only to correct those habits of the school that was formerly named elementary school, but also the challenges and the exciting opportunity which you're about to describe is about the creative arts and merging that with the language immersion program.
That's right. And so as Wild Rose has been named and is developing as Wild Rose, the School of the Creative Arts, as their staff has taken this notion of bringing the Spanish language into their school, and they have the classroom space. Given these numbers, we have the space to grow a complete line of dual immersion classrooms at this school. They've looked at it and said this would be very exciting because as we're developing the arts and those cultural competencies for our students, at the same time we can develop the language arts in another language. And they're beginning to look at that and to interpret that as an art form. And then as Principal Miller, Dr. Miller here, has been working with her staff, they've also begun to look at what are the cultural artistic forms of dance and music that we could bring to the school, that their own staff has talent. We learned today that one of the teachers has a background in flamenco dancing. Wouldn't that be exciting? Another teacher has a background in folklorico. So to be able to start the wellspring of some of these art forms for our children that complement the countries that have the Spanish language. So there are some frequently asked questions, and one of the questions that we've been asked is, what is a 90-10 and a 50-50 model? A 90-10 model is where students come to school and they're taught 90% in the target language, 10% of their time is taught in English. And so that they could really learn that target language and learn all of the academic language in that target language. In our Spanish programs in Monrovia, we begin with the 90-10 model, and then we switch to a 50-50 by fourth grade. And with this, we're finding that our students in the dual immersion programs, when they take the CAS test, they score just as well, if not better, than students who are in English-only programs. They do a lot of their recreational reading in English, but their lessons in class are taught in Spanish. Now, another place where the 50-50 model has come into play in Monrovia is as we put in our TK and Kinder beginning Mandarin program, we looked at this with some wisdom. Children in TK and Kinder are learning the alphabet. They're learning to write. They come to school as having a lot of experience, but they're a blank slate when it comes to reading. And so they have to learn two codes. They have to learn all of the Chinese characters in Mandarin, and they have to learn the alphabet. And so unlike Spanish, where the alphabets are almost identical, the kindergarten and TK children have two complete forms of language to manipulate through their fine motor. And so really giving them 50% of the day to learn English, 50% of the day to learn Mandarin, we are seeing tremendous success. They're learning both. And I'd invite you to come see the second grade at Plymouth, where children are not only reading and writing and speaking and listening in Mandarin, but they're typing in Mandarin. And that was the part that just kind of boggled my mind. Little children able to type on the keyboard in Mandarin and read it to you. So they're learning both codes. So then, should students enter a dual immersion after first grade? We don't recommend that unless they're a native speaker and they come with a high level of competency in the language, because we don't want kids falling behind or having too big of a gap where they would not be able to enter and do well in school. How is a dual immersion program integrated with other programs at the school site? Most of the academics are taught in both in the target language, and then by 4th and 5th grade, it's mixed, where they're learning English and math in English, and then they're learning their target language, and then their social studies and their science may be taught also in the target language. Do English learners get enough English in the 90-10 program? And what we've seen is that the scores come out just fine, that they do have that 10% that is delivered as intensive English in their day, and we're seeing a high level of success. That's a repeat. So what are some of the challenges? One of the challenges that the task force recognized is that ensuring a cohesive campus where the campus doesn't feel like two schools, that's something that they wanted to make a goal. They wanted to make that really visible as a charge. And one of the things that we've really noticed, especially at Plymouth, as they've constructed several of these community activities during the school year, that has brought the entire community together and caused a big celebration of the Chinese culture. And so we're looking at how can we do that on all of our dual campuses to bring everybody together so that everybody that's in that school has that same appreciation. Attracting and retaining qualified teachers. We are looking at what universities are, do we have native speakers in these target languages, and how can we go in and recruit from those universities early? All of our friends and neighbors in surrounding districts are also developing dual programs, and so it's creating a situation where supply and demand for the teachers is a little bit difficult. So we are going to be recruiting early and developing those relationships with the universities so that when they get a good candidate, maybe they can call us and say, we've got a good one on the line for you. Providing necessary academic support to struggling students. We're looking at, what are those interventions and tutoring pieces that we need to have. And then another consideration is marketing an untested school. We will set up the program, set up the pamphlets, and do some marketing, and then we will track very carefully to see if the enrollment comes. So what kind of district support do we give for our dual immersion schools? We have dedicated one of our instructional specialists and the instructional specialist who works with language acquisition and our English language learners. They will be taking a very active role in supporting the teachers and the principals in the dual program so that we have a cohesive program across the district. Teachers receive a stipend the first year for their classroom setup and the additional hours that it takes to set their classrooms up. We have a district master plan that we're working on, and we have this network of schools. When Monroe started years ago, they were the only school. Now we have Monroe, we have Clifton, they're matriculating to Monrovia High School, so we have all of these partners talking, and now as we add another school because the need is there, we have a network, and so that's a good thing. And then professional development opportunities for these teachers to make sure that we have the best practices happening in our classrooms. And so what are some of the next steps? We'll be looking at determining the enrollment priorities, defining our program more specifically, connecting and collaborating with the Monroe team as our pioneer models, promoting the program and the unique opportunities within Wild Rose School of Creative Arts. The Wild Rose has their own task force where their teachers have said, we don't want to wait, we want to get together and begin to develop our plan, and we want to attach our plan to our school improvement plan that talks about these three things: the academic progressions and support, the school-wide cultural enrichments to further brand the school, and the structural considerations, the staffing, the room assignments, etc. So that is our report on the expansion of dual programs. Any questions?
Questions or comments for Dr. Kaiser regarding the dual immersion program expansion?
No, just happy it's working and moving forward.
I concur.
There was a question earlier this evening about what is our plan to help reduce declining enrollment. This is a major step in that direction.
Thank you.
Mr. Rich? Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Moving forward, we're at our consent agenda, which consists of 16 routine items of business placed on the consent agenda have been carefully screened by the members of the staff and would be acted upon by the board with one motion.
Move consent.
Second.
Ms. Huff?
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. Next, we'll have our action items, which was just acknowledged earlier by Dr. Tarosian regarding J6.
Thank you, President Williams, members of the board. I will pass this along to Ms. Wu, and Mr. Cross, I believe, will be assisting with this report about the field turf replacement at Monrovia High School. Ms. Wu?
Yes. And we're happy that this will be the last time for Mr. Cross to present to the board. And we take this opportunity to thank him for his service in the last 1 year and made changes in our department and moved the MOT department to the next level and help us finish the project he started. So, Mr. Cross?
Good evening, President Williams, Board of Education, Superintendent Tarosian, and Cabinet. So we are at the final stages of the implementation and planning stages of the artificial turf field for the high school. We had one final meeting with all of the staff, all the stakeholders at the high school, and actually had them sign off on the design, the colors, everything about the field. There's three parts to this replacement. One is the original replacement of the turf going with the upgraded material and with the cool play infill. The second piece to this is to repair the infrastructure, which is replacing all the boxes, and we're actually going to move them out. I walked with the contractor who's going to be Byron Davey Construction. They do nothing but these fields, and we need to relocate all the boxes out towards the sports track. I have a picture of what he's talking about, but basically what it is if you put turf on those lids and you have to remove the lid for whatever reason, all the infill that you put into the turf you dump out. So now you have a little plot of turf that's going to be crushed and smashed, which is what we have currently. If you go out there and look at any of the box covers, you'll see that the turf is laid down compared to the rest of the field. So what they do is they move them out to the ends of the field along the track, and they fill it with track material. I have a picture that'll help you, give you a better visual if you'd like to see that. So that's what the plan is. And then it only made sense that when the construction is all completed that we renovate the track, not replace it, We're gonna replace where it's all peeling and delaminating around the edge of between the turf and the track. And then we're gonna have it cleaned and we're gonna have it restriped. So those are the three parts that we're proposing that we do to the field.
Did you by chance happen to bring a slide of the sign off that everybody did?
I have it right here.
I mean, for the public.
Oh, no, I did not. But we have the sign off, I'm sorry, for the for all the stakeholders at the high school. And I have some pictures of the boxes and then I have a color one that kind of illustrates what I'm talking about. If you want to pass those around.
That might help, just so that folks can see it.
Mr. Cross, quick question, because we've had a lot of conversation about the field boxes and the lack of integrity there. But so when they're moved to the outside, are they the contractor gonna have to lay new conduit, or are they just going to extend that conduit?
No, they're just going to extend it where appropriate. So for example, the water cannons, they have to move out, so they're going to move the water piping, but not replace all the infrastructure. They're just going to relocate everything.
But the field boxes, you're talking about the field boxes with the electrical and the
Correct.
So that conduit's just going to be extended to move toward the perimeter.
Right.
Is new cabling going to get pulled, or is it just going to be extended? You can't use a cable stretcher because that doesn't exist.
It's all low
talk about it a
voltage.
lot.
Yeah, it's all low voltage, so it's probably just going to be extended. There are some plugs out there, and I do think they're planning on re-pulling those because they come from under the bleachers. It's not
Which ones you think they're planning on replacing, re-pulling?
I think the ones they're going to have to re-pull are going to be the ones on the east side of the field.
So all the coax that's in there, the power, and the audio, they're going to pull new cable, pull the old one out and pull new?
Yeah. They're moving the boxes about 3 or 4 feet.
Right.
If there is extra in the box, they won't. If it doesn't reach, then they're going to have to pull it back from wherever the junction box is.
Right, which is under the bleachers.
Right.
What they should do is put the proper cable in for the technology that exists today. And we should get with the technology department because the coax is not digitally rated and it doesn't work for the television production department we have at Monrovia High School. It doesn't carry the signal anymore. It's outdated. It's analog cable.
Yeah.
So if we're doing part of it, we should do all of it. And you can't just extend it with new higher rated cable and add on to the analog cable. It isn't going to work.
No, you can't extend that.
So that's useless.
Yeah, but you can extend power, the low voltage.
You can extend power and you can extend audio, but the video cables that are in there are useless now, cannot be extended, and should be pulled out and replaced. If they're going to do half of them, they should do all of them.
We are doing all the boxes. All of it's being done.
I know you're doing all the boxes, but it's the cabling that's in the boxes that's the issue.
I'm sure all that is being replaced. It's $78,000 for all the infrastructure.
I would like to know for sure. You think it is, and you're pretty sure it is, but you're not saying you know it is, and it's not delineated. If all of that cable is being replaced with proper, up-to-date cable for today.
I can get an exact scope from the contractor.
That would be good.
If we move this thing forward, Chris, we can just put that as part of the motion, and it can't move until that's resolved.
Concur.
True. Which they would need to get with Charles and his department to make sure that that is taken care of properly. I'm not worried. The power and the audio is fine. It's the video that's the issue.
Understood.
Yeah, because we do have some plans, Mr. Cross, with regards to publicizing our football games, as we did on our homecoming evening before the thunder and the lightning came and hit us. And so, but I'm ecstatic about this as a play-by-play announcer. So, any questions you have, Mr. Hammond?
And forgive me, the renderings that we've been given here are woefully inadequate for trying to make a decision on something. I'm making an assumption that what is before us is the proper thing to do. It is because it is blurry at best, and illegible, and it's almost impossible to know if this that we're going to be considering doing is the proper thing or not. So you might pass this down.
Yeah, I want to make sure Mr. Rich sees this.
Those are just samples of the boxes. These are all made by Gill Sports. They are intended.
Understood, but when we're asked to make a decision on something, you would think that we would get something legible so that when we were doing it, we could say, this is what we are doing. It's almost to the point where you'd say, I'd like to bring this thing back because
I'm exactly at that point, Rob, because the infrastructure is such a big part of this replacement. If we are to
and
bring
I'm fine. That right there would just.
If we're to bring it back 2 weeks later, how does that affect the order and the installation?
The question I have, it was really important. It would have been done right now as we're getting ready to entertain this, and it's not right now, so therefore it's not that important. The question I have besides that is there going to be some construction going on with the cell tower at the same time? And I understand that this is your last meeting, but whoever is in that position to coordinate those efforts to make sure that that cell tower construction and this field construction run concurrently and don't and try to do them at the same time so that there's the minimum amount of negative impact on the campus instead of having one great big huge project and then doing another great big huge project. So if we could coordinate that, that would probably be wise. But I'll send that back. So I'm good for tabling this until the first meeting in November.
I'm fine for tabling that too.
We're all on the same page. Mr. Cross, I would like to personally thank you for your efforts in you coming in the transition of our last MOT manager with regards especially to the new field and all the other wonderful things you have done on behalf of the Monrovia Unified School District. It would behoove me not to say that to you. So thank you very much, and God bless you in your endeavors.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross, for all you've done to move Monrovia Unified forward. We really do appreciate your efforts, and I will miss you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to serve the district, and I've really enjoyed it and the things that we were able to accomplish in a short amount of time.
Indeed, we did. Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Happy trail, sir. It has been acknowledged that we will floor.
And perhaps at the next meeting, we could have a display of what it looks like. That'd probably be beneficial too.
Thank you for that comment, Mr. Hammond. That's definitely a necessity, in addition to the pictures that were shown originally. Dr. Kaiser, we're moving with you with several action items. If you can move forward with the University of Southern California School District Replacement Agreement.
Gladly. President Board Williams and Board, we have before us tonight a University of Southern California, USC School District Placement Agreement, where we are seeking approval from the board for a placement agreement with the University of Southern California to place intern candidates to work under the continuing supervision of a USC supervisor who provides general support at the classroom level of the cooperating school. And this agreement would be to place counseling interns in our elementary schools. There is no cost to the district, and they would serve under the leadership of Dr. Catherine Rial.
Entertain a motion.
It is really hard for me to do this.
All right, questions or comments? You may want to share why you said that, Mr. Hammond.
I'm not a huge fan of USC. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Ms. Huff.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Oh, that's tough. Okay, yes.
Board President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. Dr. Kaiser, new course offering for the high school students, cultural geography.
Yes, I'd like to share with you a new course offering for high school students, cultural geography, as part of our early college program, and a board item that Mr. Hammond might like a little bit better. Our early college program is robust, and as it continues over the next 2.5 years, we will continue adding courses regularly. This course is aligned to our LCAP Goal 1.6, and it would be adding cultural geography to the palette of courses that our early college cohort students would be taking.
Questions or comments?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Huff?
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. Public review of recommended textbooks. Dr. Kaiser?
Yes, the Board of Education is requested to accept for public review prior to adoption the following textbook for the early college course, Cultural Landscape and Introduction to Human Geography. And this, again, is the textbook that will be part of the early college program supporting the course. And we will bring this back for approval within 30 days.
Questions or comments?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Huff?
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Please move forward, Dr. Kaiser, regarding the sexual health and HIV/AIDS prevention instructions.
This agenda item, we are, it's the Board Policy 6142.1, Sexual Health and HIV/AIDS Prevention Instruction and Accompanying Administrative Regulation. The Board is requested to receive for first reading the Board Policy 6142.1, Sexual Health and HIV/AIDS Prevention Instruction and Accompanying Administrative Regulation. Within this policy, it's being driven heavily by the California Healthy Youth Act, which requires us to update our policy according to the new laws, and also to bring into our schools, to update our sex education course for middle school and high school students.
Questions or comments?
I do. When the curriculum comes, I would like to be able to sit in on that because I'm sure the public will have lots of questions and I want to be able to answer those questions. This is one of those things that can become very heated quickly. So I want to know all there is to know about it before we're there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Kaiser, this is brought for first reading. It'll be brought back again for a second reading and approval at a later date.
In our next board meeting.
And I would suggest we can do that under consent because this is not an action item right now. We're just bringing it for first reading. And if there are no other comments or suggestions, it can be brought back under consent at the next meeting for approval.
Absolutely.
Concur. Public preview of recommended textbooks.
Yes, it's the Board of Education is requested to accept for public review prior to the adoption the following textbook for sexual health and HIV/AIDS prevention instruction, Sexual Healthy Education for America's Youth by Positive Prevention Plus. As part of the sexual health instruction, the Board of Education is requested to present for public review the above textbook. Secondary science teachers, administrators, and parents have viewed various textbooks and recommended the above text for use as part of our sexual health HIV/AIDS prevention. We will be conducting several parent meetings before these courses or this curriculum is rolled out, and we will make sure that we have all of our stakeholders fully informed of the content as this updated material is coming out.
Questions or comments?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Huff?
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. Dr. Jackson, creation of a new classified management position, please.
Yes, the creation of a new classified management position, also known as a public information officer. The Board of Education is requested to establish it as a new classified management position. It is recommended that the board create a classified management position under the general supervision of the superintendent or designee to serve as a spokesperson for the district to plan, develop, implement and direct all internal and external communications, and to coordinate and produce special public events, emergency responses, public relations, media access, branding, and marketing for the district. In consultation with the superintendent, this position will oversee all communication outlets used to enhance community awareness, knowledge, understanding, and interest in the educational programs offered by the Monrovia Unified School District. It should be noted, the district has employed a public relations firm over the past 3 years and budgeted for this particular expense with the use of funds from the supplemental and concentration funds. We will continue to do so with the creation of this position. Therefore, there is no budget implication to our general fund. In addition, by hiring an internal candidate, we also realize a savings by doing so. I think more importantly, having an internal candidate with the in-depth knowledge and inner workings of the district on a daily basis will serve the district in a positive manner.
In addition to that, Mr. Hammond and I, on 3 years ago, we had requested more transparency communicatively with the public. This will be an asset to highlight the efforts of Mr. Fertich and Mr. Russell with the adults, to highlight the fact of the Mandarin and the dual immersion with Spanish that Dr. Kaiser just articulated, and frankly, to highlight all of our success stories. We need to be more transparent with the public on what we're doing well. So on that note, Dr. Jackson, I appreciate that.
Final statement. I just need to make sure I enter this into the record. After the Board of Education has established the position, the Personnel Commission shall classify the position and shall recommend the salary range to the Board of Education as provided in Education Code 45268, and I would be bringing that back to.
And so I would like that we stress that the successful candidate is very, very strong in social media. That is, we are woefully inadequate in our social media outreach.
Mr. Rich?
Dr. Jackson, what's the official title of this position again?
Public Information Officer.
Right.
Motion?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Huff?
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Shoshana. Dr. Terosian, any pending board issues and business?
There are no changes to the schedule. There is one correction I'd like to note before we get to new business, and that is that all sites will be closed on Monday, not Friday, November 12th, to recognize Veterans Day.
So noted. With regards to old business, our regular board, our joint Board of Education with the PC meeting on November 14th, and of course, December the 12th, our regular Board of Education meeting. The new business, Red Ribbon Week was already acknowledged by Dr. Terosian, which is the 23rd to the 31st. And also, of course, Frank Jansen Library Dedication Ceremony at Monrovia High School on the 26th. And of course, Friday, November the 12th, as you just mentioned, that correction, and then CSBA Annual Education Conference in San Francisco. November 29th to December the 1st, which SantaCon will be entertained. On that note, I'd like to adjourn the Board of Education open session meeting at 8:50.